The Minnesota Wild made some interesting moves over the offseason, but they're one of the few NHL teams that still has some unfinished business. Seth Toupal of Locked On Wild joins us to discuss that and a lot more coming up next on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here, and welcome everybody to the Monday episode of the Locked On NHL podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and like our videos so you never miss an episode. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. It is great to welcome back to the show a familiar voice and face to Locked On NHL listeners, Seth Toupal. And Seth, the Minnesota Wild, it's been an interesting offseason. Let's start with the additions. How do you feel about Vladimir Tarasenko and Sturm joining this team? And are they better than they were last year as a result?
You know, it's interesting because I really like bringing Nico Sturm back because I think he helps solidify an area that has been a problem the last couple of seasons. Now, not directly because of the players that were penciled in to play on the fourth line, but because of all the injury issues that this team has had to deal with and all the players that have been called up from Iowa or have been picked up via waivers to try to complete the roster, you end up with at various points, you've got guys like Travis Boyd, Brendan Gaunce that have stepped in to play fourth line minutes. And it has led to, over the last couple of seasons, you're talking single digits in points for the guys that have played a majority of the games in that spot, which, you know, you're not expecting a ton of production from your fourth line, but I think there's something to be said about having guys that are tried and true NHLers, which is what Nico Sturm is. And depending on how the roster plays out with some young players that I would imagine will make the team or be the first call, you're looking at least according to Daily Faceoff, a fourth line that consists of Marcus Foligno, Nico Sturm, and Yakov Trenyan, which is way better than what they have had over the last few seasons. It gives a presence, and guys that just know when they're in that role, they know what they need to do. And Sturm's a great face-off guy. He has really turned it into an area of study, which I think is going to help because the Wilds, they haven't been great in the dot like ever, other than maybe Mikko Koivu. So having a guy that really studies the art of winning faceoffs, as Nico Sturm does, I think will help everybody else. And he brings some good speed, but he also he's been right in the thick of 2 Stanley Cup playoff wins. So he got there with Colorado and won. He got there with Florida this past year and won. So he knows what it takes to get to that ultimate prize. So I think that can certainly add as well. The biggest one is Vladimir Tarasenko. And you look at the numbers at the surface, 11 goals and 22 assists in 80 games. Not great, but Detroit was terrible last year. Like they got off to the awful start. They fire their coach. They bring in Todd McClellan. They were good for like 2 weeks, and then they fizzled again. And I think he was playing more of a third line role with them and wasn't, because he is an offensive guy. Like Tarasenko is an offense-oriented player. And so having him on a third line role and asking him maybe to do a few other things other than just shoot the puck, probably not putting him in a good position to succeed. So he comes here, he'll be at least initially on the second line, and he's going to be asked to shoot the puck and score. And I think he can help in that aspect. That has been one of the biggest black holes on this team was the second line right wing spot. So I think there's a chance that this definitely could work out. It will either be that or it's just a continued kind of slide down the mountain. But this year, I think the Wild are more equipped to be able to handle that. If he doesn't pan out, they have prospects and young players that can certainly work themselves into that spot. So they've got good options. And if these guys pan out, then this team is going to be it's going to be much deeper than it has been in previous years. And even if, in the case of Tarasenko, even if he doesn't, it feels like they've got players that can step up and fill that spot as needed.
We opened with a mention of unfinished business, Kaprizov and Rossi. It's not a law firm. It is, the to-do list right now for the Minnesota Wild, two of their best players. Where do we stand, and how do you see these two scenarios playing out?
Well, not close is the word on, I guess, both players, but I'll start with the context on Kaprizov because I don't want people to, sound the panic alarms or hit the panic button or anything. Michael Russo did report the latest update was that things between Kaprizov and the Wild are not close, but we should keep in mind Kaprizov has been on vacation. So he's been in Europe. Bill Guerin was in Europe for a while as well. The expectation is that once he gets into the United States, into Minnesota, that both sides will come face to face and hammer this out. That is, I think, where a lot of the back and forth is going to come from. And honestly, the biggest issue, Gil, in this negotiation, I think, is the term. I don't think the money is a problem at all. Craig Leopold has been very adamant that nobody's going to offer more money than the Wild can, and he's right. And honestly, that just leads me down the path that there really is not a number that they're uncomfortable with. The Wild want him for 8. I feel like Kaprizov wants to go like 4. Just because, you're not sure. You want to see how this team plays out and if they're going to build a legitimate contender before you up here for a lengthy contract. So I think that's the biggest sticking point. But for Kaprizov's side, he's got to keep in mind his injuries as well. Like, he played 41 games this past season. If he were to say, yeah, we're going to table this until after the season, and he gets hurt, he loses a lot of leverage that he could potentially have in the negotiations. So I think it will get done. I think it's going to be a very high number, probably highest in the league as far as AAV goes. But he's 10th in the league in goals since he came into the league back in 2021. And he's played 264 games compared to some guys that have played in the 300s. William Nylander has played 327 games in that same span. So you think about adding, 60 games to that and maybe another 40 goals. Well, let's say he has 40 goals in those 60 games, or 30 goals even. That would put him to 4th on the list, behind David Pastrnak, Leon Draisaitl, and Austin Matthews. So
good company.
Yeah, he's scoring at a pace that warrants him being one of, if not the highest paid player in the league. And I think the hit of not giving him what he's asking is far worse than just paying a little bit more than you kind of are comfortable with. So ultimately, I think that'll get done. Now, on the Rossi side, I mean, where do you start? Like, the sides are not close because Rossi wants a deal similar to what Matt Boldy's getting. The Wild just do not view Marco Rossi as the same type of player as Matt Boldy. So they are far apart on term. They're far apart on AAV. Ultimately, I think they will maybe try to do something similar to what Bowen Byram got, where it's just, let's get you a deal that will get you to free agency, and we'll try to find a trade partner. But nobody else seems willing to pay that price either. Like, he's been on the block all offseason, and nobody else seems comfortable paying that sort of a price for for Rossi. So this could certainly drag through the rest of the month of August, but I don't think a holdout really favors Rossi. I don't think that gives him any sort of leverage in this situation. So ultimately, I think it'll be a shorter term deal, maybe 1 or 2 years, just to get to UFA status, so that if this happens again, he can just walk. But I guess we'll wait and see.
Going to be interesting. We'll see how it all plays out. Seth, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
You can find Locked On Wild at Locked On Wild on all of your favorite social media platforms. We lucked out in getting all those socials, so just at Locked On Wild. You can also follow the show on your favorite audio platforms, YouTube, you name it, we've got it. And you can also follow me for expert Minnesota sports takes and grilling technique, grilling analysis at Seth TOUPS.
All right, Seth, thanks so much.
Thanks, Gil.
Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You could track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. And one thing I love, if you are sharing an account with a significant other or another person, Monarch Money helps put everything in one place and makes it so easy to track all of your finances. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year.